Hello everyone and welcome back to Silicon Sounds, audio for the rest of us. Today I have the pleasure of reviewing an IEM from the house of Kinera, their Celest sub-brand. This is the Celest Yaksha. I'd like to title this review as Musical HiFi Musical. Celeste is one of the sub-brands of the house of Kinera. They're positioned as a lower price but still high-performing member of that house and have a history of producing several interesting and good-sounding products over the last few years. The Yaksha is one of their latest releases. It's an ambitious one, as a number of IEMs from Kinera and their sub-brands, which includes Queen of Audio, by the way, have produced. It is a hybrid driver setup consisting of two dynamic drivers, one balanced armature, and a single micro-planar driver per side, which seems to be becoming very popular these days, including a micro-planar as a driver. They are made to play together, all of these drivers, nicely via a four-way crossover. The Yaksha is relatively easy to drive and is not overly picky when it comes to source. However, the treble can suffer when not driven adequately. There seems to be some misbehaving going on, particularly in the upper mids, where it blends into the lower treble unless driven adequately. Tip selection is one thing the Yaksha is definitely sensitive to, and I would recommend that time spent on tip synergy, both for achieving a good seal and for the sound quality. Concerning tuning, we have a more or less mild V-shaped signature, which is more balanced and extreme at any end of the frequency range. The sound can be described as a non-fatiguing presentation, better suited for non-critical listening and long listening sessions when you're not sitting there trying to figure out every minutiae of the sound. Specs, drivers are two dynamic drivers, one balanced armature, one micro-planar. Sensitivity is 105 decibels. Frequency response 5 to 20 kilohertz. Impedance is 12 ohms. And it does ship with a very nice cable, which I'll show you later. Build and fit. The Celest Yaksha is a beautiful IEM. Let me give you a close-up. Hopefully the camera will catch it. Very nicely done. I must say, Kinera, the house of Kinera, Queen of Audio, Celeste, you've never produced an IEM that I would say is junk or disgusting looking or has terrible quality. Above board all the way. Very nice. It's fitting for a product from the house of Kinera. Its black resin shells are adorned with an attractively designed caps with branding. Here we have Celeste. And on the other one, Yaksha, if you can see that plainly. There you are, sorry. Very good. I did not receive the full retail box, but from looking at pictures, I can tell that it's up to the very high standards for Kinera and their sub-brands, in particular when it comes to the unboxing experience. I did, though, receive the cable, the retail cable. Beautiful looking cable. Haptics, I'm on the fence about. It is a little stiff. A little bit, just a tad more stiff than I would have preferred, but with use, I'm sure it will soften up a bit. And as we can see, the cable comes with a 4.4 millimeter balance, which I believe is an option at checkout. Let's get back to the Yaksha. Right here, put it in view. It is a larger to medium-sized IEM, and fit was never an issue with me. Although, if you can tell from its profile, it is fairly chunky, and tip selection will be tantamount here. Will be very important to get that proper fit. You can see that the nozzle is protruding pretty much. And again, so those with smaller ears or small diameter ear canals, spend some time with proper tip selection, and hopefully most of you will be fine. Let's get to the sound here. Bass. The Yaksha has a bass that goes moderately deep with lively mid-bass presence. Bass power is ample when called for, with moderate slam in the sub-bass. Not the heaviest slam I've heard in this price category. Again, we're talking around the $130 or so mark, 130, between 120 and 140 USD. Oh, it's still sufficient to carry over to a good experience. Bass is improved energy when they come up to the mid-bass, actually. The mid-bass has better snap, impact, and detailing than down low. There is a warmth to the bass that is pleasing, but what is lacking here is texture and detail retrieval compared to a few others in its price category. A number of them I have here, which we'll go through when I do the comparisons, as I've been asked to do more comparisons. Again, bass here overall is okay. It is fairly good, definitely not class leading, but still not terrible. Mid-range. Mid-range has again a nice warmth to it with a controlled pinna gain, thank goodness, which does add a touch of liveliness, but without becoming harsh. But one hand giveth and one hand taketh away with the Yaksha. While there is good clarity, there's also a lack of overall resolution and detailed. At times, things did sound a little smoothed over in the mid-range, particularly in the lower mid-range. As we come up to the upper mid-range, things became a little bit more concise, or precise, I should say. This approach to tuning at times leads to the mid sounding more hi-fi than organic, which can hurt the listener's emotional involvement into the music. Layering and separation were also okay, but not class leading. So when I talk about the the listener's involvement in the music, what I'm talking about, music is an emotional thing. That's how I see music. And when you play certain tracks or you're feeling a certain way, you get drawn into the emotions. Many times your own emotions, sometimes the emotions of the singer or the musician itself. I found a little disconnect with the Yaksha with respect to that. It wouldn't draw me in as quickly as some others. Again, layering and separation are okay, but not class leading. Yet the Yaksha didn't really ever sound congested in any way. Female vocals do sound more energetic as compared to male, and here again the Yaksha is easy to listen to, but when not in critical mode. Male vocals come across fine with good authority, but compared to female vocals lack the equivalent level of texturing and energy, sounding a little bit more flat. There's also occasionally some interesting glare heard in the region where the upper mid-range flows into the lower treble. A strange kind of glare that did affect timbre occasionally, not in the best way, but it wasn't that distracting as it did not happen often at all. Timbre here, while not class leading, is good, apart from those rare instances where that glare was heard. Transits did have a softer leading edge, but combined with a mostly natural fall-off. The Yaksha has a mid-range presentation tailor-made for non-critical listening with an easy tone and sonics. Being as a reviewer, you have to listen to things critically. Things are a little bit more complex. When being critical, one can find faults, but just chilling and listening to some fine music, it is still a very good experience with the Yaksha. Treble is relatively well extended and balanced with adequate quantities of sparkle and air. It is a treble tune to complement the rest of the frequency range as opposed to making its own statement. Detail retrieval here is actually pretty good, much like the upper mid-range. I forgot to mention detail retrieval on the upper mids are not that bad at all. And in the treble, definitely there is detail retrieval, a mix of macro and micro details. But at times the treble can sound a little subdued. This might be having issues with the treble trying to balance out that thicker bass. So sometimes the Yaksha could come across occasionally as sounding somewhat dark or subdued. And very occasionally there was a metallic tone heard on that rear track that did become distracting. That being said, the majority of the time this was actually not the case, and the treble was pretty pleasing, to be honest. Imaging and soundstage. The Yaksha throws up a soundstage that is moderately sized with decent width and to a lesser extent, but still audible, depth and height. The Yaksha does not sound constrained, and imaging within that soundstage was found to be quite stable. On busier tracks, the Yaksha's average layering still manages to hold its own. I was listening to tracks, for example, Beautiful Lie by Vic Lavender, classic house track, tons of percussion, brings a lot of IMs to its knees. Even though the Yaksha is not the best with respect to layering and separation, it still held its own, staying away from that wall of sound effect that lesser earphones project when things get overly busy. The different note elements still manage to carve out their individual space. Considering their overall headspace, I would rate the Yaksha as above average. Let's talk about some verses. Now, I'm going to pull out a few earphones I have here. Here we have the Kiwi Ears Eroso. $130. All of these are within $10 of each other. There's another set that the Yaksha that may not be at the top of its class with respect to the critical listening, but does better than most when it comes to casual listening or just chillaxing, taking in some tunes with your favorite beverage or person. Comparatively, the Eroso offers up a drier presentation, but still quite musical. The Eroso has better sub-bass control, yet may fall slightly behind the Yaksha with respect to low-end power. In the mids, the Yaksha enjoys better note weight, yet the Eroso has a livelier sound. Treble energy is a win for the Eroso, both when it comes to treble energy, still being very clean, and treble detail. Let's go to the next comparison. One of my faves recently, the QOA Mimosa. This is a stablemate of the Yaksha, as it also comes from the house of Kinera, but the Queen of Audio sub-brand. At $138, the Queen of Audio Mimosa, again, a stablemate from the house of Kinera. Compared to the Yaksha, the Mimosa has a more vibrant sound, top to bottom, with superior bass detail and snap. No contest here when it comes to bass. The Mimosa definitely is more involving, just a nicer experience when it comes to bass. This carries over to the mid-range, where the Mimosa comparatively displays a mid-range with more life and clarity than the Yaksha, including arguably better detail retrieval. Note weight is where the Yaksha does fight back, though, besting its housemate with a thicker tone. In the treble, the Mimosa for some may have too much treble. It can be considered bright, depending on the source driving in. Of course, tip selection makes a big difference, which is in stark contrast to the Yaksha, which depending on the track may be faulted as sounding somewhat dark. Needless to say, the Mimosa has ample air and sparkle, with both having resolving treble and good detail. So let's put that away. Now we have, if I can pull it out, and this is the issue when reviewing. Prior to the Yaksha, I listened to the Keyfine Quadio. If I can find the other one, please bear with me. The Keyfine Quadio. Now, many of you may not know this company, but you should. At $130, the Quadio has a comparable retail presentation. In fact, on par, most definitely, with the Celeste Yaksha, and that's what Celeste is known for. One of the things they're known for. The Quadio has a more pronounced sub-bass with better control and speed. Definitely more pronounced bass overall, sub-bass in particular. Mid-bass has comparable impact while being better defined on the Quadio. In the mids, both offer good note weight, with the Quadio offering a slightly more balanced musical sound. In the treble, the Quadio does not have as much extension as the Yaksha. The Yaksha has a greater treble extension than the Quadio, but that being said, both trade blows when it comes to detail retrieval as well as sparkle and air. I would say the Quadio maybe a touch more sparkle and air than the Yaksha. That being said, where the Quadio really enjoys a unanimous victory is in its transit response, its speed. The Quadio excels at relaying transients even the most difficult percussive elements. Despite its safe tuning, quote unquote safe, this makes the music feel more alive. To be quite honest, I would reach for the Quadio first if I had to choose between the Quadio and the Yaksha. There we go with that. So what's the conclusion after all of this? Some may find that maybe I was a little negative on the Yaksha, but let's talk about what that really means. My ears are my ears, my preferences are my preferences, and others will differ, and that's expected and hoped for, actually. The Celest Yaksha overall is a good IEM. It has on offer a complete sound, and it is a complete sound. It's not lacking in terms of fullness, that I'm sure will satisfy many listeners. In my time with it, though, I did find that its sonic presentation was more hi-fi than organic. Hi-fi has all the elements there. It has the bass, the mids, the treble, the transitions, everything is there. But it lacks organic, that naturalness that will draw me in to the music as opposed to being a third party listening to the music. So I didn't get really absorbed into the music as often as I would have hoped with the Yaksha. I did start listening to it after some standout IEMs, such as the Quadio, so that may have skewed my appreciation of it. But then again, none of these products exist in a vacuum. None. It's a tough battle. Still, while it wasn't always my speed, as I crave something more organic and engaging, I can see how many may be smitten by the sound of the Celest Yaksha. Thank you very much for watching this review. Like and subscribe, and continue to focus and watch upcoming videos. We have quite a few in the docket ready to come out. And thank you for joining us at Silicon Sounds, audio for the rest of us.